Okay, we're going to do one more. This was a couple weeks ago. It's more on the gun and a lot of tidbits in this one too. So check it out.
Hey, it's me. I want to chat just a little bit more about Ivan Marks and the character that we haven't said too much about in the whole affair, the dog.
Well, hang on. Maybe we won't do this one. What's going on here? It's buffering bad here. Try it one more time. Still buffering. Alright, well, I guess this one's not gonna do. Got everything closed that I could close.
And what would you give for a dog like that will track a Sasquatch? What's his worth? The reason I ask, beautiful dog, by the way. One of the few characters in there that I admire. I used to deer hunt, and back in the old days around here, that was mostly what they used was dogs. Dogs were very valuable to their owners, hunting dogs. Extremely efficient. If there was one deer in the whole county and you found his track, you let a red-bone hound out and let him cold trail. And it may take hours, but eventually he'll heat up and they'll take him off the trail and put in walker dogs. At that point, the deer's toast. And they succeeded in killing nearly all the deer in Mississippi at one time using that method. And they brought some deer in from Mexico, I believe it was, and restocked. And now we have the highest population of deer probably anywhere in the United States. You know, to the credit of conservation. But most people don't use dogs. They allow the use of dogs during a brief period, but most people when they cut all that down, the time you could use a dog, it's expensive to keep them all year. Still a lot of raccoon hunting and stuff with dogs, with rabbits, but this dog was none of those things. The name of this dog, by the way, is White Lady. Belonged to North American Guard Dog Services in Canada. They highly valued this dog. This man was afraid that the dog was going to be killed, and said the beast is going to kill that dog, and I'm going to be next. Is what he told Al Hodson. Kept this guy flanking him all the time. So this fellow, the old bear hunter, he tells me about his meeting with Ivan Marks. And he met him at the old Bluff Creek Resort, which I've passed by that building many times. It's turned into I think they use it now for a Klamath River, expeditions. You get in a kayak or a raft. It's passed through several hands. Back in those days, it was a restaurant in there. This is the story he told me, but I don't necessarily believe it happened that way. He told me that he was trying to sell his dogs to someone else, his hunting dogs, bear dogs, and that Ivan Marks overheard the conversation. And when the deal fell through with the other guy, Ivan Marks offered to buy them. Well, that sounds like it could happen until you hear the rest of it. He said that Ivan Marks pulled out a backgammon game, opened it up, and retrieved $18,000 cash for his 3 dogs. Do you think that 3 bear dogs is worth $18,000 back in the 1960s? There's something to think about. This man made no qualms about it if you heard the interview, that he wanted to kill one. And he also bragged that his dogs could run anything. So there goes, a shadowy thing. $18,000. I don't think he pulled that figure out of a hat, but you have to want something in return for an $18,000 investment in dogs that don't live that long. You see, that's why it's still a lot of searching out to do. Because people will not tell you that they did it. They will tell you sometimes when someone else did something. But he went on to tell me all about his exploits down in the Bluff Creek area, that him and his son had seen a Sasquatch. Well, his son had seen it. And they went to the spot, and there were tracks, and they took pictures of the tracks and said there was a smell there like burnt beans. It smelled just like beans that had been left on the stove. And it lingered in the air a long time. You hear all kinds of things about smells and people's interpretation of smells, but that's the only time I've ever heard a Bigfoot smell described that way, as being burnt beans. But next question is, where did Ivan Marks get $18,000 cash to keep in a backgammon game? I say you have to kind of, well, maybe he's telling a lie, but I don't think he would pull $18,000 figure out of the air. So someone is probably backing Ivan Marks and with money. It is just something to think about. Oh, no, Ivan Marks was a smart man. He was no dummy. He wanted those dogs for a particular reason. And those dogs had to be able to deliver, and that's what I'm talking about. It's there's more to the story when you hear a first person start talking in the third person, and then the third person, and in the third person say first person things. Well, then you kind of know that they were probably down there. He not only that, but he told me where they had buried him. You know, how do you do that if you're not a first person? You got to understand that that the old bear hunter was sick and about to die. He was on kidney dialysis. Before he went on dialysis, he wanted me to go out there with him. He was going to show me. But I never was able to get away. And then he came down with kidney problems, and then he passed away. Before he passed away, he tried to tell me where a treasure was in a cave. And I wouldn't let him talk. I stopped him. And I told him that I thanked him for information that he went out on a limb for. And that was the treasure. And just leave it at that. So, he's gone. But I recorded a lot of his conversations. And I wouldn't play them while he was alive. There was only one that he was aware of that I recorded, and I told him in advance. That was the first one we did, and after that, I didn't tell him anymore. He actually joined up with Tom Biscardi's group at one time when they went down to Texas. But he couldn't get along with Tom and left without pay. Underworld, shadowy underworld, things that are unpleasant. Now, getting back to some other things. Hold on here. Facebook threads, people talking. Well, there he is. So I'm trying to find the one. Well, there was a thread today that where the guy was talking about it. He knew Ivan Marks and everything and this and that. And he talked for a while, and then I realized, he said that he had spoken with Roger Patterson, and Roger Patterson died 47 years ago. I mean, he may have spoken with him, but you look at the picture of the guy, and he sure don't look that old. So, you listen to what he's doing and saying, and then you realize he's spinning. And spinners, you don't have... I've encountered people doing this over and over again. People will spin things. They don't care what it's about, just as long as you're not talking about anything that, you forget what you're talking about and entertain him or her or whoever it might be. And I blocked him. Then he asked to come back under a different name, and I knew it was him, but I let him come back anyway. I tried to talk to him in private message, and didn't do a lot of good. But if somebody comes up to you and argues that Ivan Marks had 2 right feet and that he saw them and he knew it, that's what I mean by spinning. Now, he didn't say that, but I'm giving you that as an example. They don't care what you talk about, but they just don't talk about anything important. And so over and over and over again, and there'll be more. This right here, while I'm here, a link was sent to me for that, and I want to remind people that there are machines that grab a log, cut it off, and tote it upright, and then flip it over and strip limbs. It's all done with one machine. So, be reminded of that. So that's about all I have to say, really. Just talk a little bit about him. I think I forgot the gentleman's name now. Doug? Was it Doug? That wanted to ask if this person was with them. And I had to answer that. I suspected that he was. Old bear hunter, that is. Him. In all my travels, I have met so many people, and I feel blessed because there are people who will talk to you. Once they realize that you're sincere, they'll talk to you, especially if they're getting on up in age and health's failing. We can go back to that. Let's see here. Where did I have that? I think it's in here. Let's see here. It's not there. There. let's see, right here. I looked over, I took this barrel out right here, took it all out of there, and looked down in there to see if somebody had put a brass pin in and braided the end of it, or braided, or whatever you call it. And I didn't see anything. It was just superficial right in here. A little speck of gold. Looks like it was just a pocket knife just spun in there, because it's beveled. And just a little gold poured in there. Perhaps for a special occasion. He says this is a Bigfoot track that his son had saw the Bigfoot. My first inclination is bear, but he says Bigfoot, and he was a bear hunter. And there's no claw marks that I can find. So it must have just been, most of its weight was on the front of the foot. This was at Bluff Creek. Well, I won't argue about that. I don't know how this happened. Okay, I see what's going on. It was laying on his countertop there. I was not at his house, by the way. I was near Falk, Arkansas. His sister-in-law's house. He drove and met me halfway. There's a little more of the track. It does extend further back. You know, my first inclination is bear, and I asked him about it, and he says it was not a bear, that his son got a good look at it. See, I took the thing completely apart. All the mechanisms. Pretty bad scar there. This sucker's been toted around, probably in a saddlebag. Deep scar. Couldn't clean that off. A couple of them, like it was chunked onto some rocks or something. Yeah, Rob, you see all kinds of prints, over a period of time, and some people say yes, some people say no. I'm not a print person. It's good for the person who finds the print, but unless it leads me to a Sasquatch, I'm not real excited. And maybe it could lead you to one if you're out there and it's fresh enough, or maybe it tells you some information you need to find one, something like that. But, it's an impression in the ground. It does not necessarily represent the foot either. A lot of things can happen. Like this one, he says it was. But, all you see is the front part. And they will walk. There's some Patterson tracks where it walked on the front of the foot. for whatever reason. There we go, back to that again. So, in the course of our discussions, beware of spinners. You know, that's all I wanted to say. As far as what he says, I have a background of knowledge myself, so I always compare what I know with what someone is telling me. That's the only thing that I can do. Oh, look, there's Bluff Creek. Bear dung, old bear dung. Bears eat a lot of grass. These right here are a couple of months old. Actually, they were taken in August first time, so this October. You see the difference in the, you know, they look old here. And the ones in August, they were really bright. They got long memories, folks. This was all around the area where they first buried them. And you can kick the sand. There's no grass growing on it. You can kick it, and it's like flour. It's just dust. I'll post. I got a video of it. See where they bent all the trees and tore all the trees. It's all in a circle around this area. And when they're in the area, they if maybe one of the older ones who remembers it, still pissed. These strange marks on both sides of that area, both sides of the bare spot. This one's new. This one's old. I told a friend of mine about it. He says, well, I came through there and I did it. But I didn't tell him there were two. I just told him there were one. You know, I just told him they were there. I'd seen some trees with marks on them. And I kept asking him, and I said, finally I said, did you know that on the other side there was another one? And he started stuttering. And then he gave up when I said the other one was a couple of years older. You see, and so it brings, they crave inclusiveness. So you learn a little bit about people when you're doing this kind of stuff. That people will claim things that aren't theirs. They'll claim special knowledge. All kinds of things. So you as an investigator have to have a background and be able to sift through it. No, he didn't do this. He didn't even know where the place was. Bob Hieronymus, the guy claiming to be the man in the Bigfoot suit in the Patterson film, he says that he walked on white sand. And there's no white sand down there. It's almost black, most of it. It's shale sand. You see what I mean? And Bob Hieronymus, to this day, is still friends with Bob Gimlin. Boyhood friends and friends now. See how old that one is? What was it cut with? A knife? Sharp rock? What? What do you think? These trees are now gone. The entire trees are gone. Roots and all. I believe this is a birch. Don Monroe got right there. that is. No telling. There I am. Uh-oh. There's that little fetus thing that we found. Not far from there, actually. I have a lot of regrets about that. Let's filter that thing. It's got a little appendage. Could it be a bear? Fetus of a bear? I don't know. I have regrets. Oh well, I don't claim to be a genius. You get down there and we picked it up and put it in a bag, but it spoiled. Well, that kind of tells you it was pretty fresh. This is just downstream where that croucher was. I mean, just downstream from it. I mean, you could probably see the croucher from here. This was floating in the water. We put it up on a rock. I had not filmed the croucher at this time, but I filmed him on this trip. After we went up on the mountain and came back, and then that's when I took the film of it. So maybe it does belong to the croucher. Wild stuff, but be aware that in these unfolding Facebook Live events that some people could come in and do more spinning. And I'm not trying to be ugly to people. And all opinions are welcome, and also all questions are welcome. But if I think that you're just trying to argue about whether somebody has two right feet or not, or anything like that, well, that's not going to contribute to the discussion, and so I will shut it down one way or another. So. All right. All things aside, I'm going to break loose and go about my day. And while you're going about your day, I hope I've given you something to think about. And let me tell you, you got some good images to look at. A lot of problems are solved just thinking about them. They're solved upstairs. You have any insights, they're welcome. I would love to hear them. You folks have a great day.
Okay. Yeah, that's going to be the last one tonight. But the uh, fetus looking thing he was talking about, and I don't think I've ever seen this one before. Maybe I have, but there's been so many of them. But anyway, you can go to his channel and or type in the YouTube search bar MK Davis Bluff Creek Croucher and see that croucher that he's talking about that he filmed. And this was just a couple of years ago, and that's an interesting thought. I mean, if it was right there and the croucher had something in its hands, it was wrapping something up. It looked like. So that's pretty interesting too. But anyway, y'all have a good night and God bless.